Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge. Lots to get into. Injury setbacks, Mateta transfer requests. Could he be heading to Manchester United? Fabrizio Romano talking about the secret midfielder. And a big deal for Manchester United signed off. Not a player though. We'll talk about that in a moment. Think History Channel. Think making money on our past. Think New York Yankees. Think Glazonomics. We'll talk about that in a moment though. I'm a little bit late because I forgot I was doing the 2 o'clock show. As Doug Parr says, Goldbridge be on time challenge impossible. In fairness to this one, mate, I don't normally do the 2 o'clock show. And there's a quiz question. When was the last 2 o'clock show I did? I don't know the last 2 o'clock show I did. I really don't. And I forgot I was doing this one. So sorry for being 8 minutes late. But look, it's good to be with you. I like the 2 o'clock show. I think it's a good one in the middle of the day. I miss doing it, actually. I used to love doing the 2 o'clock show. So anyway, let's get in. Get your comments in. Let me know how you're feeling. Let's go. So first of all, we're going to talk about an injury setback. Sky have reported that both Joshua Zirkzee and Ligt were absent from Manchester United training today. Carrick was seen taking a more hands-on approach during the session alongside his other coaches. So no Ligt and no Joshua Zirkzee. Look, the Zirkzee one concerns me less because I don't, as I said, when Mason Mount came on at the weekend, I'd forgotten that he was a Man United player, which is ridiculous. But the change of system, how well we played, Amad Mbeumo back, I'd forgotten about Mason Mount, and it's decent having a player like Mason Mount on the bench. I'd also forgotten about Zirkzee, who wasn't even on the bench. So it just shows you with Zirkzee, nice to have him fit. I like the player, but not a massive loss if he's injured. De Ligt, on the other hand, is more of a problem because I think obviously Maguire and Martinez played well and we can use them again at the weekend. However, I don't think they're flawless. And also, I think when we progress to not parking the bus on the edge of the box and countering against better teams, I would like to see De Ligt there for his mobility, and also he's good in the air. I think he's like Maguire and Martin. I think De Ligt's almost like a combination of Maguire and Martinez, 2 for 1. So having him back, and I think he was arguably one of our best players until his injury. But when did he get injured? I sort of think it was November. So it's been a very long injury for De Ligt. I believe it's a back injury, but there was talk. This is why I don't listen to hipsters, not hipsters, in the know accounts who you don't know who they are because they've got a funny little tag name and a picture of a player, you know, saying, oh, I've got information from the training ground, De Ligt's going to be back for the Arsenal game. I never believe it because I don't think they actually do have sources. And we were told that De Ligt would be back for the Arsenal game. No. He's not going to be back for the Arsenal game, is he? Because even if he starts training tomorrow, why hasn't he started training today? And even if he starts training tomorrow, he's not going to go into the team for Arsenal, is he? So I think it's going to be a little bit longer for De Ligt. But, you know, we go with what we've got. We beat Man City at the weekend. Maybe we can beat Arsenal as well. But the sooner he's better, the better. The sooner he's better, the better when it comes to De Ligt. Now, into some transfer stuff. We've had a couple of updates coming in. Fabrizio Romano has spoken about the secret midfielder. But I want to talk about this first because this is a player that I actually think would be perfect for Manchester United. And it's quite a significant update that Mateta of Crystal Palace has indeed handed in a transfer request. So Ben Jacobs says Mateta has told Crystal Palace he wants to leave this January transfer window. He's got no plans as it stands to sign a new deal, which has got 18 months left on it. Mateta wanted to move to Juventus, but the Serie A side offered a loan with conditional obligation, which was unacceptable to Crystal Palace. Aston Villa are now showing interest alongside their pursuit of Tammy Abraham. Understand Crystal Palace value Mateta at around £40 million. Now, Mateta is 28. He's got 18 months left on his contract, £40 million. I think this is, you know, call me crazy, but I think this is exactly the sort of deal that Manchester United should be looking to do. We're not Arsenal, we're not Liverpool, and we're not Man City. We're not that club. Every signing we make doesn't have to be a star. Like, it can be a little bit nuanced. And I think with Mateta, you get a 28-year-old who is ridiculously physical, very fast, and also a proven Premier League goal scorer in a team where you don't get as many chances as you would for an Arsenal or a Man United for that. Also, he's the perfect age profile for a counterbalance to Sesko. And he's also quite similar to Sesko in relation to, if you take Sesko off, and you bring on Jonathan David, there's a very big difference in size and how they play. If you take Sesko off and you bring Mateta on, you bring on a player that's quite similar. And I think that's very important. So I actually think this is the sort of deal that Man United should be looking at. And it pains me when I see Aston Villa going for a player like this, considering they're in third. And I've said this for a while. I want to climb the ladder at Manchester United. I want to climb the ladder to the top of the Premier League. But you can't cheat. It's not a game of snakes and ladders. Like, you can't just cheat. You can't go from 15th to 1st. You've got to go from 15th to 5th and then stabilise and then try and push for 3rd and 2nd. And we've never mastered in the last 13 years the ability of staying in the Champions League for a couple of years. I think we've done it maybe once, maybe twice. How many years have we finished in the top 5 2 years in a top 4 2 years in a row? Not many. To do that, you've got to build a team for the 4th place. And then you build a team for 1st place. We've never done that. And maybe somebody like Mateta would come in, competition for Sesko, bring Sesko on, take one off, bring one on, one gets injured, you play that one. Regular flow of goals from the striking position gets us into the top 4 regularly. And then in a couple of years, you then go and get your top class striker, you know? And I think we just don't do that enough. We don't do it enough. And also, when have we had a backup striker? I mean, the last time we had a backup striker must have been when we had Cavani and Martial, and Martial was never that reliable. Because when Rasmus came in, Martial was never fit. And then Rasmus has left 2 years later, and Sesko's come in, and he's not got... So it's easily 3 seasons since we've had 2 strikers. And we need 2. We definitely do. However, there is absolutely no link at this time for Man United moving from Mateta, and I don't think there will be, because he's over 26. And I think that's a mistake. I mentioned this on the show this morning. I think that's a mistake. I think it's like our transfer policy is killing us because we're so tunnel visioned. And the trouble with having an age restriction is that it contradicts your other parameters. So if you want a Premier League proven player, Mateta's a Premier League proven player. Yeah, but he's over 26. So you actually want a Premier League proven player who's 25 or under to play up front for Man United as a striker who's experienced. You're going to struggle for that. You are going to struggle for that. Hope you're well and having a good day, Mark. Says Daniel, I'm had a great day doing the 2 o'clock show. This is great. Who would you prefer out of Wharton and Tielemans, says KC Gaming? I've seen a few people mentioning Tielemans. I think that's because of your super chat. I'd take Wharton over Tielemans. I like Tielemans, but I think Wharton has shown Premier League experience, even though he's quite young, and I think he'll get better and better. So I'd go with Wharton, definitely. But yeah, as Yuri says, it's a great point about contradicting metrics. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I don't know how you can go, I want a Premier League I don't know what, I keep doing time out. I don't know why. Time out from the bloody Glinios. I don't know how you can go from, we want a Premier League experienced manager, but he's also got to be a puppet. Well, a puppet tends to be an inexperienced coach. So how can you get a Premier League experienced coach who also wants to be a puppet? It's a contradiction. We want Premier League proven players who are experienced, but we won't buy anybody over the age of 25. It's a contradiction. I'd be all over the Mateta deal, and I tell you this for free, I actually think he would be the sort of signing where half of you would agree with me and half of you wouldn't, but I bet in 6 months you'd be going, what a signing. What a signing. Well done. You were right. And I'll go, yeah, thanks very much. I do think it would work out. Moving on, we can always come back. We have also had an update from Fabrizio Romano. He says, Ruben Loftus-Cheek's name has been floated in recent days as a secret midfield option for Manchester United. However, there's no contact between United and the player, and no approach has been made to AC Milan. So I think that came out from Alex Crook in TalkSport yesterday, who is a bit hit and miss, to be honest with you. Fabrizio Romano is saying, no, there's not been any contact. I think the story yesterday said that Man United had been offered Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Well, clearly that's not the case if you believe Fabrizio Romano. He's saying categorically no contact between United and the player and no approach has been made to AC Milan. So therefore there can't have been an offer made. In relation to Fabrizio saying recent days secret midfield option for Manchester United, it's interesting because I know who the secret midfielder is and it's not Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and I think most of you figured out who it is as well. So he's not the secret midfielder. I think I replied to Beth yesterday and on X, and said it on X myself when it came out about Loftus-Cheek. I said maybe we are in talks with him, but he is not the secret midfielder. So Loftus-Cheek isn't the player, and Fabrizio Romano has confirmed that as well. If you like your sources a little bit more mainstream. I know some people don't believe we get information, but we do, and he is not the secret midfielder. We've agreed a TV show, according to The Athletic. I will talk to you about that momentarily, mate. But look, I think it's not P. Diddy. The reality is, I don't even think Manchester United will sign the secret midfielder, who most people know who it is now anyway. But remember what Ben Jacobs said about the secret midfielder. We had held talks with them at the end of last week. So it's not Loftus-Cheek, but we did hold talks with them. I don't think we'll do that deal. I don't think we'll do that deal because I think the club are playing a game of spin, and I think the club are putting it out there, a player that they know no one's going to want, so they can go, well, you said you didn't want anyone, and we didn't get anyone. And I think that's the play that United are playing here, if I'm being completely honest. But yeah, nothing with Loftus-Cheek. It'd be very interesting as well. My mind's just working overtime here. It'd be very interesting. What are your thoughts on a striker? Because we hear about a left winger, and we hear about midfielders, and we hear about fullbacks, and we even hear about centre-backs as future Manchester United signings, but we don't really hear anything about a striker. And I think whoever the manager is next season, they're going to want another striker. They're going to need another striker, because if we get into Europe, and, you know, hopefully we will, I don't think Mbeumo as a striker is going to work when we're playing midweek and weekends. I think we'll blow our resources very, very quickly. And the reason I say that is Ahmad's the only winger we've got with Mbeumo. Dorgu can play off the wing. Cunha can play off the wing. But Sesko's the only real, genuine striker we've got. And there's still a lot of work to be done with him. So yeah, you could play Mbeumo up front, you could put Cunha up front, but I do think we are crying out for another striker. And I don't really know if it's going to be part of the plan, because that striker for me has got to be over the age of 26. I think we're crying out for an experienced striker to lead the line and help Sesko out. But I've not actually heard that United are looking to do anything around that. And as I say, look, it's only a theory and you don't have to agree with it. But I think when Mateta's asking to leave and Man United aren't doing anything, they talk about if opportunities present themselves, we'll move on them. I think this is a golden opportunity. I really do. I think his record in a Crystal Palace side is phenomenal. And I think he'd work brilliantly in a Man United side. And I think if we put Mateta up front against Fulham next week, he'd score. I do. I think I've watched him play for Palace quite a lot over the last 18 months, and he's a proper striker, a proper Premier League striker. I think if he goes to Villa, he will score them goals. Like he will score them goals. Look, it's a little bit out there, but £40 million for a player that's going to give you at least 3 seasons. You know, in 3 seasons he'll be 31. Probably going to score you double figures each year. Yeah, I would move on it, and I'd move Xerxes out. As Casey Gaming says, how about a swap deal, Mateta for Xerxes? I don't know whether Xerxes wants to stay in the Prem, but I would move Xerxes out and I would bring Mateta in. But we won't do it. This is what we were talking about this morning. Wrong again. The board are just idiots. They've got an absolutely... I wish they weren't in charge of our club, breaking news, but they've got an incredibly silly approach to running this football club, because they just close their eyes off to deals that would actually improve us. They really would. Smash a like on the video if you'd like Mateta. Want to hit 1,000 likes anyway. But I would. Tell me I'm wrong. I'd like to hear the other side. I'd like to hear the other side. Lamb says Mateta is Juventus bound. We want to be a big club again, and you want to sign Mateta, says King Walker. I think that's a good point. I don't mind answering that. we want to be a big club again, but you want to sign Mateta. What? A striker that won the FA Cup last year? A striker that was in the top 6 contention up until Christmas when they fell apart because they were playing too many games? One of the best strikers in the Premier League. And you don't think that's the standards of a club that can't get in the top 4? I think when you're climbing a ladder, mate, you might look at the top and go, yeah, I want to get there and go, I'm the king of the world. But you've got to climb the ladder. And I remember Man United, before we won a Premier League title, we hadn't won one for years. In my whole life, we hadn't won a Premier League, a First Division or a Premier League title. I'd never seen Man United win a title until they did. But on the journey to climbing there was multiple players that came in. You know, we had people like Mike Phelan playing, Neil Webb. We had players along the way that just probably weren't to the level, you know, Danny Wallace, people like that. We didn't, you know, Lee Martin, probably weren't good enough to win a title with, but they helped us on the way to getting up to winning FA Cups and becoming second. And then when you're nearly there, that's when you bring the Cantona in. But there's too many people in our fan base that never witnessed Man United before we started winning things. And you have to go on a journey to get there. You don't go from 15th to winning a title. You've got to bring players in, like Dion Dublin. You know, Dion Dublin wasn't that good, but he was a useful player to have around. And that was after we'd won a league title, to be fair. But like you know, you do need to build your way up there. And I'm not even saying Mateta starts. I'm saying we need 2 strikers. And your second striker can't be bloody Wout Weghorst. It's got to be somebody that if Sesko breaks his legs, you can rely on them for 3 months. Stepping stones players, exactly, yeah. Unlucky Studio says, do you think a striker or a CM is more needed? Oh, mate, we need 2 centre midfielders before we need a striker. But I think my point here is, and I think most people would agree, is that United can say we're not spending in January because we're going big in the summer. Imagine if we did buy Elliot Anderson. But my big question is this, and I probably haven't asked it, but it's always been in my head. Okay, you're not going to buy any players in January again. Oh, bloody hell. Try and do something different, Sir Jim. We've never fucking not bought players in January before. We are proper out there, groovy. But the problem is we don't buy in January and we're not going to do it again by the sounds of it. Idiots. However, let's pretend we're not buying in January because we're going to buy in the summer, right? We hit the summer, we buy Elliot Anderson. Has anybody actually thought if we get Elliot Anderson, that might be it? Even if I trust them to go and get Elliot Anderson in the summer, what else are we doing? Because they've not projected that. They've said we want to go big in the summer on a midfielder. What about the second midfielder? What about the winger? What about the other striker? What about the fullbacks? We're not getting any of them, are we? One summer, a World Cup summer, don't even know who the manager is, and you think we're going to get Elliot Anderson, Baleba, a striker, a winger, another fullback. And this is the thing. They'll get you to buy the shirts on the Elliot Anderson and they won't deliver anything else. And we need to build multiple positions. We need a second striker. We definitely need a winger. We definitely need 2 midfielders. We arguably do need a fullback and a centre-back. So there's a lot of things that we need. And that's before you start building your bench. Can Sesko play if we're trying to be a pressing team, says Don? Well, Robert McCormack says we went downhill when we stopped buying superstars. Robert, it's a 2:00 show. I don't do many of these, so I don't know what sort of mood you get in the day. I can deal with you at 8 o'clock at night and I can deal with you at 10 o'clock in the morning, but 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I don't know where we're going here. I don't know whether it's sarcasm or reality, but we went downhill when we stopped buying superstars. Yeah, because Alexis Sanchez worked really well, didn't it? Yeah, Alexis Sanchez worked really well. Jadon Sancho worked really well. Mata worked really well. You could argue Pogba didn't do really well. I don't think we went downhill when we started buying superstars, to be honest with you. Di Maria, another superstar, that went really well. I think you could argue that most superstars we bought haven't worked in the last 10 years. So I don't agree with you on that one, Robert. But you might be being sarcastic. You never know. You never know. Doctor Strange says, Amrin wanted all these demands we're talking about, and what happened? The cycle and the manager will pay the price for Glinios's mistakes. Well, this is what I was going to say about Don J. He says, can Sesko play if we're trying to be a pressing team? The interesting thing about Sesko is, I like Sesko. I think a lot of people do like Sesko. But I don't get the signing, if I'm being completely honest. Because if Carrick doesn't rate Sesko in the way that he wants to play, he's going to have to use him anyway because the club will say, we want you to use Sesko. Which is exactly the same that happened with Amrim. Amrim didn't want Sesko. He wanted a more experienced striker. You're getting Sesko because this is the direction we're going to go in. Did Sesko really suit what Amrim wanted and needed? No. Does Sesko suit what Carrick needs? We don't know. Does Sesko suit the next manager? We don't know. But this is how the club is run. They buy players that they think are right and ignore what the manager wants. It's like running a restaurant, isn't it? And you employ an Italian chef and then you deliver him a load of ingredients that are French. And he goes, okay, so you've recruited me. You've done a massive load of publicity about me and why you've brought me in. You know what I am. You know what I do. And then you've decided you're going to give me the ingredients for something that's not what I do. Yeah. Great. Great. Thanks. And guess who's going to get the sack and be, called an idiot? Me. Yeah. Thanks for that. Brilliant. But that's I like Sesko, but did he suit Amrim? No. Does he suit Carrick? We'll have to wait and see. Is he what the next manager wants? I don't know. And look, some football clubs do run like that. I'm not going to say they don't. But what I find incredible is if you're going to appoint a head coach, not a manager, and you're going to choose the players, why appoint a head coach that doesn't suit the players you want? So, look, it'll be interesting with Sesko. I think Sesko's got a lot of potential. I think up until the Man City game where he didn't play, he looked like he was getting his eye in. He was scoring a few goals. And even in the last couple of games of Amrim, I think he should have scored 2 against Villa and 2 against Leeds. Should have scored 2 against Villa. Should have scored 2 against Leeds. Not might have done, could have done, or whatever. He should have done. So I think for the last few weeks, he's been getting into good positions. He's also a young player. And a little bit like Isak in La Liga, he wasn't prolific until he came to Newcastle. Sesko could become quite prolific in a Man United shirt because he certainly wasn't that prolific at Leipzig. But yeah, I mean, look, I think hopefully Sesko is going to end up like Dorgu, a work in progress. Goldbridge says, I think Ineos are looking at players like Cunha and Mbeumo as utility players capable of playing across all the front three. So don't think we'll be bringing another striker now or in the summer, but we should. Yeah, well, you know what, Goldbridge, I think you make a great point because if you buy enough players that can play in multiple positions, you basically save money. And I think you raise a very good point that if I was Sir Jim Radcliffe and I need to save money, then I would be looking to buy players that can play in multiple positions, jack of all trades rather than masters of one, because that just saves me money in the long term. Robert McCormack says, we keep buying average, that's what we will be. But look, I don't disagree with you actually. I think we should buy superstars. I don't like the fact that the wage bill is being brought down, and some people, as I say, knock one out to it, going, "Oh yeah, we're lowering the wage bill." Idiots. I couldn't give a toss about the wage bill being lowered. In fact, I wish our wage bill was the highest in the league. I really do. What does it bother me? I don't care if we're lowering the wage bill. I'd rather the money was being spent on wages than dividends and debt interest. I don't get excited about the wage bill coming down, but there are fans in our fan base who, really cheerlead it. The problem with our wage bill was that what we paid for where we were finishing in. Like we had one of the highest wage bills in the world and couldn't get in the Champions League. That's embarrassing. But Man City have got one of the highest wage bills in the world and they're always in a bloody title race and they're always in the Champions League. Our problem has never been the wage bill. It's what we pay to players that aren't worth it. I want the highest wage bill in the league, but I want to look at the wage bill and go, oh, he's good, he's good, he's good, he's good, he's good. The problem is we pay stupid money to stupid players. And now we're saying we're not paying stupid money anymore. We're going to lower the wage bill. And I agree with Robert in a sense that you get what you pay for. And we should be trying to... I saw something today about Cole Palmer's from Manchester and would like to move back to Manchester. By all means, go and sign Cole Palmer. He's a superstar. He's a top player. I would love a player like that. And give him 300 grand a week. I don't think we're going to do it, though. I think the old club is not coming back. We shouldn't keep mourning it because nostalgia is not a strategy. We should appoint someone to build a new DNA, says Tahis. And regarding your question about shampoos yesterday, what do you think about Vicky, says Araki. I've never heard of it. Anti-aging skincare? Never heard of it. It's skincare. Does they do hair as well? There we go. It is legit. It is legit. You know, we are a community here. We try and help each other out. Wilkins says, Mateta would remind me of the Louis Saha signing. Hugely valuable and underrated. How important having him at the club was for early Rooney. Brilliant. Brilliant point, Wilkins. Absolutely brilliant point. Really, really, really good. But talking about what Tahis said about nostalgia, Man United have agreed a deal with North American production company Lionsgate to create a dramatised retelling of the club's history. The concept is similar to that of The Crown, the series broadcast on Netflix. Production is still in the development stage and has not yet been written off or sold. Jed Mercurio, creator of series such as The Line of Duty, has participated in discussions around the project. He's been a fan of Man United since his childhood. United will receive a guaranteed sum of several million if the series is produced and sold. Future royalties will be shared between United and Lionsgate, with the value increasing based on the number of seasons, episodes and the contract's value. This is coming out of The Athletic. So basically, Manchester United are going to make money off their past again. And look, I'd watch that series because if it's well produced, it would be great to watch a story of Manchester United through the seasons. Can you imagine that? Like, you know, 8 seasons of well-produced TV with interviews, etc., telling the story of Man United on Netflix. Boom, we'd all watch it. It would be great. It would be absolutely great. And I'm not going to knock the idea because I think it's brilliant. You only live once, and to watch all that again in a well-dramatised series would be brilliant. Really, really good. On board with that. Absolutely fantastic. Yes. But there is a flip side. And that flip side is, this is the problem. This is the problem. When we sacked Amrim a couple of weeks ago, a lot of people were getting very angry with the board. And somebody emailed us and said about the New York Yankees on how they've got owners who don't prioritise success. They prioritise making money off the brand of the New York Yankees, which is built on its past. This is just another example of what the Glazers are doing and what Sir Jim's doing. You're monetising the past. That's all you know, you're living off the name Manchester United. You're living off the past. You're making money off success from the past and not spending that in a way to be successful now. So how long is that sustainable that we just keep living off the past? I'm all for the series. Nostalgia sells. But what do we do with the money from that? When are we going to build a future for our next generation of fans? Because at some point, talking about the 1999 was 27 years ago. 27 years ago. It's not going to be long before looking back to 1999 is going to be like 50 years. You can't do that. You can't do that. So everything is just about making money off the past with United. When are you going to make a future? When are you going to make a now? Because United will always be able to make money. But they're doing it off things they didn't do. Oh, let's make money off the previous owners and the previous manager's success. Like, start listening to common sense and start recruiting best in class instead of what you've got at the moment, which is just clearly strategically wrong. You're obsessed with Chelsea, and Chelsea haven't won a Premier League, you idiots. Their model of buying players under 24 isn't and hasn't worked. Their fans are frustrated because they won't go and get an experienced centre-back, striker and goalkeeper. And you're following that model. And what will happen is Chelsea will figure it out at some point and they'll go and buy an experienced striker, an experienced goalkeeper, an experienced centre-back, and then we'll copy that. How's about getting ahead of the game? Yes, Vicky does great shampoos too. It is a Spanish brand sold all over Europe. Thought they sold in UK too as well, says Araki. I have ordered something. I'll tell you what it is, but when I get it, but I haven't had it yet. Definitely. Well, look, a fantastic show so so far. I'm finishing. Fantastic show on a 2 o'clock, and I don't get to do too many 2 o'clocks. I don't think a lot of people want Mateta though, because I said smash a like on the video, and we had 500 likes, and we've only got 700 likes. So there's 6,500 people watching, and we didn't hit 1,000 likes even by saying smash a like if you'd like Mateta. But please do smash a like on the video. It's nice to hit 1,000 likes when I'm doing a 2 o'clock show. Thank you. You can search his glasses in the Prada website. Do people like my glasses? I actually had a better pair and I sat on them and they got discontinued, so I couldn't get them. I kept them for prosperity, but they're slightly different, my old ones. Look. Whereas these ones, it's a little bit smaller there, whereas on that one, it was a little bit bigger. But they're still nice. I only got them because of the red bits on the side. There we go. Ligt is another crock, no good for the team. It's one injury, mate. I haven't got a problem with the player if they're out for one injury and it's a bad injury. The problem is when it's numerous injuries time and time again. We need to be careful with Harry as well, because Harry Maguire's had a lot of injuries over the last 18 months. He's not reliable. We saw at the weekend that Carrick said that he pushed himself to come back and he got hurt in the Man City game, but he's all right at the moment. Okay. I'm back with you at 7 o'clock tonight, not 8 o'clock, because I'm doing Marseille, Liverpool. There's a lot of reasons to do that. De Zerbi could be the next Man United manager. It's the first time I'm going to watch 90 minutes of Mason Greenwood since he wore a Man United shirt. That's going to be interesting. And also, it's against Liverpool, so hopefully they'll lose. Robert McCormack says, smash a like if you want superstars. Well, you could do it that way either. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. I'll see you at 7, and thank you so much for watching.